Alright guys, in this video you're going to find out how to find the inverse of a function. The inverse of a function is a function that does the opposite of whatever the original function is. So in all these functions that we'll be finding, we're basically finding its opposite, something that undoes the function that we start with. For any of these, you're just going to switch the x and the y and then solve for y. Okay, so let me show you guys what I mean. So here I have f of x equals 4 minus 5 fourths x. F of x is essentially just y. So we can write it like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to switch the x and the y. Make this x. Make this y, okay? So you flipped it around, you made it opposite. And then you're just going to solve for y. So I'm just going to subtract 4, x minus 4 equal 5 fourths y, okay? To get rid of this 5 fourths, I'm just going to multiply by 4 fifths. Cancel, 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 cancel. And I'm left with y equals 4 fifths x minus 4. You can distribute that, of course, and simplify it a little more, but I'm just going to keep it like this. Now the last step is this y. To show that this is the inverse of f of x, I'm going to write this symbol. I'm going to say f negative 1, which means f inverse, the opposite, the inverse of f of x. F inverse of x equals this new function. And that's it. That's the inverse of our original function. Now, let's look at some other ones here. Again, we can act like this is a y, and this is, of course, x. So the first thing I'm going to do is switch these around. I'm going to make this x, and I'm going to make x into a y. Okay? Now I'm just going to solve for y. Subtract 3. X minus 3 equals negative 8 y. Divide by negative 8 to get the y by itself. Alright. So switching this around, I'm left with y equals x minus 3 over negative 8. I'm dividing the whole thing by negative 8. And again, to notate that this new function I have down here is the inverse of this one, I'm going to write f inverse of x equals x minus 3 over negative 8. And again, you can see why these are opposites. Just a quick note here. This function adds 3 and multiplies negative 8 and adds 3. This function right here subtracts 3 and divides by negative 8. So opposite operations, okay? Here, it will be a little more obvious, because again, we're dividing by 5, so we're going to end up with something that multiplies by 5. But anyway, still just follow the same steps. Switch this with an x, and an x with a y. Now again, we're just going to solve for y, so multiply 5 on both sides, because that'll cancel. Left with 5x equals 20. Minus 7y, subtract 20 on both sides, get 5x minus 20 equals negative 7y. Again, get rid of the negative 7 by dividing. I'm left with y equals 5x minus 20 divided by negative 7. And again, let's notate this being the inverse by saying f inverse of x. Okay? Alright, that's lowercase cursive x, f there. Alright, finally, let's look at these last three very quickly. They're a little bit different. Again, we're going to switch our x and y here. Make this an x. Make this a y. Okay, now I'm going to solve for y, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Okay, To get rid of a fifth root, you raise both sides to the fifth. So you have x plus 2 to the fifth equals y plus 2. Again, subtract 2. Get y equals x plus 2 to the fifth minus 2. Again, we can replace this y. In this case, it was h of n. So let's make it h inverse of n. Okay. Of x there. Let's make that x. Sorry. Okay. Again, that's your inverse. Does the opposite. I'm going through these quickly because these should be. I'm just doing this to refresh your memory on how to solve some of these equations. Get rid of the fifth root by raising it to the fifth on both sides. So if I'm going through this quickly, just slow down the video and just look at it again. Again, it's just how you've solved other equations up until now. So these are fairly new types of equations that we just learned how to solve exponentials and logarithms. Again, but you follow the same process. I'm going to switch x and y right here. Okay. To get rid of a base, I'm just going to take a log of the same base. So log base 3, those cancel. Log base 3 of x equals y over 5. To get rid of the 5 there, multiply by 5. I get y equals 5 log base 3 of x. Replace the y with y inverse, okay, the inverse of y, because we started with y here, we didn't have function notation in that case. So again, solving an exponential, we use a log of the same base. Again, just switching the x and y, should be pretty used to that at this point. Here, logarithmic equation, switch the x and y. Okay. To get rid of a log of a base 6, you have to take an exponent of the same base on both sides. Those cancel. X to the 6th equals y to the 4th. To get rid of a y to the 4th, you raise both sides to the 1/4. Okay. End up with y inverse equals 6 to the x over 4. Okay. Again, these were harder type of problems, but the process stays the same where you have to switch x and y. You can look back and see some refreshers on how to solve some of these equations, but for right now, understand how to switch the x and the y, and we can talk about how to do the other kind of equation stuff later. All right, thanks.